Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. So in Cincinnati, where I live, there's a restaurant chain. It's pretty popular. You find them sometimes outside of Cincinnati, but it's the Frisch's franchise. Frisch's used to be kind of it made its way, I think, in the 50s and 60s during the car hop times. I think if you remember the TV show Happy Days, Frisch's was kind of the gathering place that everybody got together. They would bring their hot rods down and show them off in the parking lot of Frisch's, and that was kind of the thing. And it stayed that way up until recently. And the sad thing is, a lot of these Frisch's big boy restaurants are closing around the city. There's some that are still are still hanging on. And I thought about it the other day because I went to one to get lunch because those big boy hamburgers are pretty good, and they have great onion rings, and Frisch's has always been something good in Cincinnati to go get. Yeah, it's sad to see them depleting in value where people have stopped going. Now, there's a couple things I've noticed is I go by Frisch's restaurants in the morning. This is before COVID. COVID really, Frisch's never recovered after COVID because one of the aspects of going to Frisch's is you would go and there's always a counter in the middle of the restaurant, most of them, and people would come in and get a cup of coffee, go to the salad bar, have a hamburger or something, but you'd come there to talk, kind of like a Cheers atmosphere. Now, families would go and sit, come to the restaurant and eat. It was always kind of a nice place to go, as a family atmosphere. So as families have struggled to stay together and do things together, you've seen Frisch's take a hit because the social aspect of, hey, let's go to Frisch's and get a big boy. And a cherry Coke went away. The impact of the business has been from that side. And then, of course, people just don't socially get together and talk anymore. It used to be cops and firefighters and social people would come and gather and talk about the day's events. And the morning breakfast bar was kind of the meeting place. And people, before they'd start their day, would go have a breakfast bar at Frisch's and talk to people in the community and get their day started. And it was kind of a good thing. And that's what Frisch's was always good for. But since COVID shut down the breakfast bar, where they always had a great breakfast bar, pretty much shut them down. The fans have never returned, and a whole new demographic now has taken place in the restaurant business. And it's really been hard on Frisch's, and again, they're shutting down all over Cincinnati, sadly. And the ones that are staying open are nowhere near as packed as they used to be. And I would know because there was a time where I was a waiter at Frisch's. I had a particularly difficult period in my life. I was in my 20s. It was really difficult. I say so difficult that people would read the story of Job in the Bible and think that he was getting a much better deal than me. It was a really oppressive period. And I was getting hit. I was doing entrepreneurial activities. I was getting sued. I had to be my own attorney because I couldn't afford to pay for the lawyers because they were milking you every time you turned around, and someone had to do the legal work to defend myself in court, and I had to do it myself. It was a really horrendous, scary, terrible time. And on top of that, because I was self-employed for a period, it was I had to pay taxes, and I was getting killed on taxes, so I had to find a way to generate the money to even pay those things. And so as a second job, I worked at Frisch's as a waiter. And I liked that because I liked Frisch's. I liked taking my family there. It reminded me of good stuff. So I was trying to keep myself from getting swept away by all the big waves. So it was empowering to work at Frisch's and have a decent second job. And I could hustle and make a lot of money in tips, which I did. I was able to generate an average of 20 to 30% in average tips, and sometimes I'd get 40 and 60. Sometimes I'd get the whole bill in tips because people enjoyed coming to see me and hearing me talk about things as a waiter, and it became a thing. And again, people would come to Frisch's and want to talk to, associate with the community. It was kind of a community center. Other restaurants like Bennigan's kind of held that. Applebee's had that kind of atmosphere. You're seeing fewer of them. There was another restaurant, Fridays. I see a lot fewer of those these days, where they used to be community centers, and when you had a birthday or you wanted to get together with your family, you went to those kinds of restaurants. So it was a treat to take the family out to dinner at one of those places. And I enjoyed families coming in. It reminded me of why it was worth fighting to do good things in life. And if you could just punch through that period, Frisch's as a second job was good for me. And I made a lot of money in tips that really got me through a really, 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 really rough period of my life. You could look at the wisdom of why people have to go through those kinds of things, and I think it made me personally resolute to the point where I don't feel like anything can wash me away or destroy me, and that started early in my life. So Frisch's I have really fond memories of, but in that time, that was the 90s when all that was going on. I always had a lot of value for it, and I hate to see it failing now. And the reason it's failing, because I knew it so well and I understood the why people went there. They no longer go there because those reasons have been taken away from them. Starting with COVID, starting with changes in family structure, value systems, where it wasn't popular to sit down and have a cup of coffee with your neighbor or with the local police officer and talk to them at the counter, that's what Frisch's did. It was a way to get to know the local police and know what's up to them, and have them tell stories of things that are going on. It was kind of a neighborhood watch program where you just got to know each other a little bit. And as a waiter at Frisch's, I worked all kinds of different hours and shifts, and I got to know the people in my community really well. It really gave you a good insight into what people are all about. And Frisch's is a staple that I hope it hangs on and survives. Maybe makes a comeback in the future, but it's sad to see it falling into a state of decay now, because it is in the city of Cincinnati. It's one of those great staples that's really been the foundation of family activity, and sadly, it has never recovered from COVID. It's one of those hidden costs of COVID that people haven't been willing to talk about. Is what happens when you shut down a business for a sustained period, and when you took the breakfast bar away from, because Frisch's was good breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was always good to go to Frisch's and get some food. But the breakfast bar was kind of a staple where you could go there and just get infinite amounts of food and talk to people and kind of get your day started the right way. When I was going through that particularly hard period of time, I used to meet with all the engineers I had on this project, and we'd meet at Frisch's and eat at the breakfast bar and read through voluminous documents getting ready for the day that we do at Frisch's. And we could eat we get loaded up on all kinds of carbs and endless amounts of eggs and sausage links, and just really have a great start to the day and fill up before we went to war, essentially, down at City Hall. We would gather at Frisch's, and that Frisch's is no longer in Cincinnati. It's been displaced, like a lot of them have been. And back then it was busy. You walked in and it was hard to find a seat because it was such a hopping place, and it was full of young people getting ready to go to their jobs, young people, older people, married people, families getting ready to go to school, go get the breakfast bar at 6 a.m. and get started on their day right. And we're missing that. And the question we should really have is that the direction we really want to go? And government policy that made it so that companies, restaurants like Frisch's that really offered something in a social context, are we better off kind of sitting around in our pajamas in our houses, not talking to anybody, and not going to the breakfast bar at Frisch's or getting a big boy for dinner and saying hi to the firemen and saying hi to the police officer and people who kind of run your community and have a chance to talk about shop talk. I'm not particularly a big social person, but I see that there's a necessity in the world for that kind of thing, and I saw it firsthand when I was a waiter and I would talk about all the things I talk about on these videos, and people would come in and talk to me about those things as a young 20-something. Hey, what do you think about this? And I'd bring them their big boy, and I'd bring them a cherry Coke, and I'd give them my ideas about things. Even as I was really, most people who knew me at the time and we talk about it now, they're like, how did you get up out of bed in the morning with that kind of pressure? And the answer is I went to Frisch's and just pounded my way through it. Read a lot of books on my breaks, and had a lot of big boys for break food. Again, it was a second job, and I'd work 8 or 9 hours at it, and I'd make a lot of money that took care of getting through that tough period. And I learned a lot about people, and why people, what's good about them, what's bad about them, and what do they really need. And they give me huge tips for talking about philosophy as they hate their big boys and ask me what I thought about things that were going on. And that includes police officers who would come to the counter, and they just want their coffee, or they just want to get a cherry Coke and just wanted to sit for a half hour and be around other people and get their bearings on life. That's kind of what the part of the restaurant experience is. And as I drive by a lot of these Frisch's and I see very few cars in the parking lot, they're not spilled over like they used to be. And again, Frisch's started with the car hop mentality, where you had people fix up their cars, go down and do a little car show in the parking lot, go in and get a big boy, have a cherry Coke, and live a great American life and share the fruits of all their hard work and fixing up that beautiful car, that state of independence, and to show it to other people. That was a format to do it. And what we've created in its absence has not been better, and it's sad to see a lot of these Frisch's in Cincinnati closing, and drive by at 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning and only see 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot where they used to be filled all the way out to the street because everybody wanted to go to the breakfast bar. Something that they never recovered from after COVID, and they only went downhill since. And I hate to see it happen. It'd be nice if we could create a more optimistic policy that would encourage people to go back to that kind of social engagement, because it wasn't just about big boys, cherry Coke, and coffee at the counter to talk to people locally. It's about the grounding that people had, that they would rally behind, like Frisch's restaurants, to understand what kind of society they should have, because they actually got to meet and talk to people that were part of the community they were trying to preserve and do something positive with. And it's missing right now. And I think we need to get back to it. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. And go get a big boy if you get a chance. Pretty good. I did the other day with a nice order of onion rings. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.